After the discussion of the previous lesson, we can now effectively validate the ID. We'll do so using a DTO. As was said at the course presentation, all the validation will be DTO based, because they are powerful and practical tools. Even then, they are not devoid of downsides, but that will be discussed in another lesson. So let's go back to VS Code, and in the common folder, I will create the folder DTO. And in here, I will create the file ID DTO. So how should be this DTO? We can see here in the create user DTO that you just need to export a class. So going back here, I will export the class ID DTO. So what should be in the ID DTO? Well, the ID, obviously. If this is the ID DTO, then it should house the ID, of course, which is of type number that we already know. So from the previous discussion, we also already know how we should validate the ID. It should be a positive integer. So we can put above it the decorators is int and is positive. There we have our ID DTO. Now, to use the ID DTO, let's go back to the users controller, and this here means that this variable will be mapped to this path parameter. But DTOs cannot use this. So we'll delete it from the tree routes. I'll use the Alt key to make multiple selections. Now, I will rename this variable to ID DTO and also change its type to ID DTO. Now, everything that arrives as path parameters in these routes will be mapped to the ID DTO. But if we want, we don't have to use the ID DTO like this. The ID DTO is important for the validation, but what really matters is the ID. So if we want, we can directly extract the ID from it. So we'll do it now using the destructuring syntax. And as the ID is already validated by the ID DTO, we can remove this number conversion operator, as it is no longer necessary. If we go back to Insomnia and send a find one request with an ID of 1, well, it is complaining about the ID, but this is a valid ID, as we have discussed previously. So what is happening? What happens is that all path and query parameters arrive as strings. So this is not being seen as the number 1, but as the string 1. And that's why it fails. Fortunately, there is a practical and elegant way to solve this. If we go back to the validation pipe in its options, we can set transform options. And in here, we can set enable implicit conversion. What this does is that when I have a DTO with a field that is of a primitive type, then first a conversion will be made to the corresponding type. And only after that, validation will take place. This is primarily intended for path and query parameters, but it also happens for bodies. It is important to remember that. So coming back to Insomnia, if I test this route again, now it works. Just a correction, we deleted the number conversion operators from here as they became unnecessary. But that was not because of the validation from the ID DTO, but due to the step we did just now, which was the automatic conversion to number. So, just to clarify. Now, if we try those same examples, such as a decimal number, then it will complain that ID must be an integer number. If I send a negative number, it will then say that ID must be a positive number. If I send 0, it will have the same complaint, because ID must be strictly positive. And if I send some gibberish, then it will complain about both things. So it not only validates, but it also tells me what is wrong with the value I sent. So with this, we have ID validation working. So we'll now just commit everything that we've done so far related to validation. Applying validation.